Welcome to the podcast of the intellectuals. My name is Ma Bus, and today we will be talking about immigration. Immigration has always been a hot topic in the United States, and it has been more controversial since Donald Trump became president. To look at how people are affected, we will examine two sides of the spectrum: Hispanic people on one side and Japanese people on the other. History has shown that society tended to think low of Hispanic people, and unfortunately, a similar case can be seen today with the imposing of different immigration laws. It seems to be unfair how rough life can be for these people for the short time they live here, and then they must be deported from the country. This is according to these statistics. As seen here, there have been several thousands of cases of Mexican deportation alone. Although the number is lower than before, the number of cases is rising. Here is another statistic that shows how Hispanics feel about their safety before and after Trump's inauguration. The arrow shows how the percent of Hispanics feeling they are uncomfortable skyrocketed due to the laws. They have this constant burden they must think daily, whereas on the other hand, there hasn't been much discussion about people like the Japanese. This table shows how Americans and Japanese think of each other, and it shows that a big percent of Americans think positive about the Japanese. This implies that Japanese life may be easier today because people aren't as harsh when they think about the Japanese. To further understand what people from different cultures experience, I have invited James from Mexico and Itachi from Japan to my studio. Hi, James and Itachi.
Hey y'all. By the way, my name is actually pronounced James Rodriguez.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to be rude.
Oh, it's okay. I'm used to it.
Hi, I am Itachi Uchiha.
Hi, Itachi. Alright, so these guys have recently moved to the US, and they are going to be sharing their experience with us. So, James, let's start with you.
It's James! For crying out loud.
So I am from Japan and I have only lived in the US for 3 years.
Wait, it's not your turn.
Oh, lo siento.
Oh wow, you know Spanish?
Yeah, I learned Spanish in Japan.
Oh wow, that is really cool.
So, James, I mean James, let's hear your story.
So I think that solely immigration status shouldn't define a person. I moved here when I was only 7 years old.
Who did you come with?
So I came here with my younger brother and my mother. We crossed the border with the help of smugglers called coyotes, who help people from Mexico to cross the border for money. They are not people who you can trust, but they were the only hope for my mother, who really wanted to provide my brother and I with a better life. We failed to cross the first time because the coyotes ran away with our money, but the next time we succeeded. It was very late at night, and we were walking with 20 other strangers. We were sharing water from the same bottle, and I was constantly coughing because I had asthma. One of the coyotes threatened me that he would throw me into the river if I wouldn't stop coughing. Growing up and living in the US has been a struggle for me. Obviously, there's a marginalization and stereotypical judgments, such as being called a criminal or being told to go back to where I came from, by people who don't realize all the struggles we go through every day and have gone through just to be here in this country. The biggest issue and fear, however, has been President Trump's decision to slowly phase out the DACA program.
So James, could you briefly tell us what the DACA program is?
So DACA is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and this postponed the deportation of undocumented immigrants like me, so that we can be assigned with work permits, which gives us an opportunity to get a social security number, pay taxes, and be a part of the mainstream society in the America.
So, why is Trump trying to terminate the DACA program?
Well, he claims that Obama created the program without proper statutory authority by misusing the executive order.
So, is this decision probably have made a huge impact on you and your family, right?
Yeah, it is a pretty big negative impact. Without this program, we don't feel very safe because there's a constant fear that we might get deported and separate from our family. Just the past week, our neighbor, who was also an undocumented immigrant from Mexico, got deported. He had lived here with his wife and two kids for 12 years. Since he was the only one without papers in his household every year, he reported into immigration, and they let him go after asking a few questions. Except this past October, they told his family that he was being detained.
Wow, that sounds terrifying.
It is. They call us criminals for coming here without papers, but we legally live here by checking in with immigration every year, going through multiple background checks, and we keep trying to get a U.S. citizenship, but the process is too difficult and exhausting. There needs to be a reform in this process. We've been living here and sustaining our lives, relying on the low minimum wage we get, working tough but necessary jobs. We are in fact an integral part of the society. The idea of deporting 700,000 young undocumented immigrants living in the US is unrealistic. I just want to send this message that terminating the DACA program because it violated a law is an excuse for this apparent discrimination against us, because removing the program clearly only hurts people and doesn't help anybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. We are thankful to hear your experiences and thoughts about this topic in our show. So, Itachi, let's talk about you. Why don't you share us your experience?
Yeah, my life has been much easier than yours, James. Immigration policies for Asians are not as strict as it is for Hispanic people today. They were heavily discriminated and excluded in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Dreamers from Asia came to the United States to seek a better and prosperous life after gold mining and many other job opportunities were discovered. They started taking jobs for cheaper salary that the white Americans originally had. Asian towns such as Chinatown or Little Tokyo were established in the West Coast, and the white Americans were worried that their land was going to be overtaken by the Asians. So they came up with a counter move with multiple immigration acts and exclusion acts, which stated that aliens are ineligible for citizenship. This was mainly against the Chinese immigrants, as many of them lost their jobs and properties, but it also applied to other Asian communities. The Japanese Americans were also specifically targeted during World War II, after the Japanese army invaded Pearl Harbor. Many of the Japanese descendants didn't know how to speak the Japanese language, nor been to Japan, but they were evicted out of their homes and were taken into internment camps, where they were basically considered as criminals. Back then, most of the first-generation immigrants were unable to receive their civil rights, but this has immensely changed today, and in general, the United States immigration policy is lenient towards the Asians.
Wow, so were you able to fit into the US easily when you first came in?
Yeah, I feel like I have been privileged now that I've heard your story. Obviously, not every Japanese American may feel this way, but I believe the majority does. I was able to go to school and live my life normally without being discriminated.
So, that was Itachi and James from Japan and Mexico. Thank you guys for sharing your stories and taking your time to come here today. It was a pleasure.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Come back tomorrow for more. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to the Podcast of the Intellectuals to keep up to date with us, and also turn on post notifications to be our first viewer. Good night.
Yeet.